Hi friends, Holly Hobby here. Today we are going to be cooking some soup. Who's excited about soup? I am. I'll tell you what, we're cooking this. Found on the Pins of Interest, Zuppa Toscana, Olive Garden copycat recipe. All right, so who loves kale? It is probably one of my least favorite foods, although provides you tons of nourishing and yumminess. And I subscribe to a CSA fruit and vegetable collective garden. And so what they do is it's a local farm and they grow these fruits and vegetables. It's like a farmer's market, but delivered to my door. And so on occasion, I can update the things that I'm receiving as far as subscribe. But a lot of times I receive what I receive. And kale is not the first on the list, but it has been proven to be very, very delicious as we're cooking different things. So I found that this recipe provides me with the ability to use all the kale in one simple soup that the family just absolutely loves. So if you're a fan of Olive Garden, this isn't their recipe. This is a copycat recipe found on the Pins of Interest. And I hope you enjoy cooking with me today. So if you've not done so, please take a moment to subscribe, ring the bell so that you get notifications when my videos post, and also comment below. I want to know what things you like, what things you don't, what things you want to try. And I'm just happy to engage with you. This is a community of openness, and I created this channel just to create things I love, share them with you, and hopefully we don't have too many fails. But, you know, let's have fun. Let's be awesome and all the things that we try. So I am going to have my phone open to keep track of the recipe, and let's cook. Okay, so the ingredients in this recipe: 1 to 1.5 pounds of Italian sausage, mild, 1 large onion chopped, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon crushed red pepper. I don't like to use that much. I use a little bit less. 2 teaspoons kosher salt, 4 cloves of garlic smashed and then minced, 4 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of flour, 4 cups chicken broth, 3 cups whole milk, 2 pounds russet potatoes sliced, 1 large bunch of kale makes approximately 5 cups, 2 cups heavy cream, 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, shredded salt and pepper to taste, more shredded Parmesan to garnish. Very first thing I'm going to do is go on ahead and start browning this Italian sausage. One thing I like to do when I brown all the things is add a little bit of nature seasoning. A little dash will do ya. I also like to use this tool, which is a chopping device. And you can use this for eggs to scramble. You can use it for meat to grind it up. We're just going to let that start cooking, and we're going to go ahead and start preparing the other items. Now, as I mentioned, Pinterest recipes, something else, that's for sure. I do have the instructions finally on my screen. Garlic. Garlic is one of the things it calls for. When it says 4 cloves, that does not mean 4 bunches of garlics. It means each individual clove in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and separate these. The best way to do that is start at the base and work your way around. You don't want to include any of the paper-like material. You'll notice this is 2, not 1. So it calls for 4. And these are each individual cloves. And in fact, when you garden, each of these get planted in the ground on their own. So you do the base, and the tip is what goes up toward the top of the ground. Just going to remove some of the paper, but I'm going to mince these. You'll notice I have a pot. After we brown the Italian sausage, we're going to be putting everything together in the one pot. So we're going to start with the mincing tool. This is one I really enjoy. I've gotten it from Pampered Chef. A friend of mine is a Pampered Chef person. And just put the garlic right in there. clamp it down, and then pinch. What you'll see is the garlic starts to come out. There will be residue left. You just use a spoon to go ahead and take that and scrape it on in. The residue that's inside is the casing for the garlic. Just go ahead and use the tip of the spoon to pull that on out. Just gonna do all 4 of these. I do have about 3 to 4 tablespoons of olive oil in this pot already going. So it is going to quickly brown the garlic. We'll also brown the onions before we add the other ingredients to it. The smells in here are insane. I wish you could capture smells in video. We're just gonna come back to the meat, toss it up a little bit. You know, this process for this soup could take you an hour and a half. It took my oldest child an hour and a half to make it for the very first time because there was so much to read through. And it was, you know, that's just one of the things of people are brilliant for producing all these recipes on Pinterest, but goodness gracious, if you don't make it very searchable and then give them the option to just jump down right to the recipe, then they're having to read through all your junk. And it's good junk. I mean, it's great for Google SEO, but it's just terrible as a user to sit there and have that experience. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut up the onion. Now it did say 1 full large onion. I used some this morning. We don't need a ton of onion flavor in anything we do. So I'm just gonna use the cuts that I have. Nothing super fancy. Get it in the oil so it can start browning. You know, the biggest thing with cutting is you want to protect your fingers. I've in fact cut off the tip of my thumb once before. And I know I don't cut exactly as all the professionals do, but I do my best to protect my fingers, make the food delectable and edible without trying to cut things off. The difficult thing about cutting onions is the shape of the onion. And what I started off with was an onion that had an end to it. So I could easily hold on to the end. But as I cut it for a different recipe, the ends kind of came apart. So I lost that traction, which is why I'm just cutting it the way I am. These are perfect cuts. And I know Gordon Ramsay would probably have a field day with it. But hey, I'm doing my best. And that's what this is about. Let's try things out, do our best. Nothing has to be absolutely perfect. Okay, so it says, chop the onion, brown the sausage, do the garlic, heat in a bowl, grease, remove the grease from the pot. I'm gonna go ahead and get out one of my strainers. I like to use this one. Put that in the sink. And this is almost ready. Let me just heat a little bit. So it says, once the garlic is fragrant, turn off the heat of the browned sausage, degrease it by dumping it in the strainer. Then you want to add 2 tablespoons of flour. Once the flour is incorporated, slowly start to add 4 cups of the chicken broth while stirring. You want the flour to thicken the broth, not to get clumpy, so go slow. All right, then you add the 3 cups of the whole milk while stirring. Scrub your potatoes well to get the dirt off. Then use a sharp knife or food processor to slice the potatoes. Okay, so this tip talked about using a food processor or something to slice the potatoes. I'm not actually allowed to use a mandolin anymore because I had cut off the tip of my thumb while doing cucumbers. So please use only utensils that are safe for you to use, and be safe while cutting. Okay, so I've drained the ground beef and just added it to the garlic and onion saute. And now we're going to go ahead and add the flour. This is a tablespoon. And, you know, instead of having to use an actual measuring spoon, you can actually use one of these. So I like to loosely measure things, but it does call for 2 tablespoons. And I have varying opinions on chicken broth. I actually like to use a bouillon and then melt it down in the hot water. You don't have to do that. You can actually buy the pre-made chicken broth, or you can make your own. And just stir that in. Get a nice aroma happening there. Before we add the potatoes and the kale, we are going to chop those up. But it does call for 3 cups of the milk. It did specifically say whole milk. Now we're going to go ahead and chop the potatoes. So when you do this, you want to be mindful of your cuts. You don't want them too thick. You can use a mandolin. You want them basically potato chip size, like a thick potato chip size. It does call for 1 pound of potatoes. I'm in fact going to use 3 good sized russet potatoes. Now, if you've had this soup before, you know that the potatoes shouldn't be like giant, right? So you can actually cut those down even further so that they're more edible in each bite. Once you've cut them down, then go on ahead and just add to the soup. Okay, so now that the potatoes are in the soup, we're going to go ahead and let those boil and simmer for 20 minutes until the potatoes are tender. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and prep the kale. I've already washed it, and I'm going to be cutting it to remove the thick stems all the way up to the leaf. I'm going to tear it into small pieces as well as cut them. Then after that, we'll add 2 cups of cream and stir in very gently. We don't want to demolish all of the tenderness of the potatoes. Turn the heat to low. After that, cook for another 15 minutes until kale is wilted. Then we will stir in 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, served with shredded Parmesan cheese, grinds of black pepper for taste. I'm going to add the little dash of chili pepper for flavoring, so that gets into all the goodies. As for the Parmesan cheese, we will be using this device to grate the cheese. And basically we cut the Parmesan, place it in here, put it down, and then we can turn it, and it's going to make a nice shredded Parmesan cheese for us. So the biggest thing with cutting the kale is it said to remove the stems completely. You can add those to your compost bin for your garden. And now that this is kind of marinating, I'm just going to go ahead and cover it for about 15 minutes. This is the timer. Now we're going to go ahead and just stir, see where the potatoes are. Been boiling now for about 15 minutes. Okay, some time has passed. The potatoes are starting to get tender, so we're going to go ahead and get our kale infused into this goodness. And you're going to think that a batch of kale is too much, because look, it's already so big. But it's the perfect amount, honestly. If you find some big pieces, just tear them apart. because these will reduce down and start to shrink. I do like to clean as I go. It also called for the heavy cream. So we're just going to go ahead and add that now. And we're also going to prepare the Parmesan cheese. Now before I do that, I am just going to stir. I like to use these handy dandy ducks. You'll see the kale is already starting to get into the liquid, and it's definitely not too much. Oh my goodness, how beautiful is that? Okay, now we're going to cut up the Parmesan cheese so that we can use this tool to grate it. It called for 1/2 cup, so I'm just going to cut off a chunk. I'm a big believer in using the bricks instead of just the self-grated stuff, because you can quality control the amount that you have in your items. Let's just place it right in there. And we're going to start to grate. Now you notice I'm not using a measuring cup. That's because I'm guesstimating. And I enjoy that, because if we want to break the rules, we don't always have to use exact measurements. And you'll feel it starting to go down and starting to disappear in the container. You just add some more. The reason why it wants grated cheese instead of just chunks of cheese is because it will melt in faster and the flavors will just absorb into the rest of the other ingredients much faster. What you'll see if you use this device, there's going to be some residue left inside of the cheese. That will melt very, very quickly. You just tap and stir, tap and stir. And this cleans off very, very nicely. We're going to go ahead and use our pot holders because the pot gets very hot. Make sure it all stirs together nicely. It's the perfect consistency now. I'm so thrilled. The flavor of this soup is absolutely delicious. And I just want to show you, if I can, in a better view, this soup is going to last for about 4 to 5 days. It's going to be gone before then. Everyone in this house loves it. I'm going to make maybe make some garlic breadsticks to go along with it. And using my Pinterest finds, we'll see what we see. Thank you so much for joining me today in cooking this Olive Garden copycat recipe, Zuppa Toscana. All the ingredients are at the beginning of the video. I hope you get to try it. Definitely subscribe, click that bell so you can get notifications when the videos are posting. Comment down below. I want to know, did you try it? Did you like it? Do you have other things that you would do different? Let me know. Cheers, my friends. Let's be awesome in all things we do. And thanks so much for joining me.